That's precedence. And that tells you all you need to know about what the ruling elite are capable of, that they are willing to target their own citizens, for lack of a better word, a term, in order to create the pretext for war. They did it in 1960. Well, they almost did it in 1961, had it not been perhaps for Robert McNamara. Had he signed off on that recommendation by the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, we probably, the United States would have been in a full-blown war with Cuba, and they may have been willing to sacrifice U.S. citizens in order to make it look like a Cuban, a war of aggression on the part of the Cubans. So there is a precedent out there, and there are others, of course. What happened up at McGill University and Dr. Ewan Cameron targeting totally innocent women, and were given massive doses of LSD and had their memories virtually erased, all part of a mind control experiment. Now, if you talk about these sorts of things with people in the mainstream press, they sort of back out of the room slowly, maintaining eye contact. But I mean, this is a matter of historical record. I mean, there have been civil suits launched and won based on this case. And Canada, the Canadian government was complicit, as was the American government. They were named in these civil suits, and they paid out.
LSD were administered to human guinea pigs. The patients were never told that their treatment was part of a CIA experiment.
Ottawa actually helped suppress a key piece of information, evidence that CIA officials at the U.S. Embassy had actually apologized to the Canadian government when the CIA experiments were first revealed. Jim Turner is still flabbergasted.
You got to understand how important these apologies and expressions of regret were. This is an admission. This is legally admissible in court.
They admitted that this was done. These things are going on. This isn't some fantasy world that we're talking about. You know that. 45 years after the JFK assassination, 75% of Americans believe there was an official cover-up to keep the public from learning the truth about the assassination.
Do you think that we have certain oligarchical elements in our culture, in our way of government?
In Canada?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We're less aware of them here. Mm-hmm. In many respects, I think essentially Canada is a storefront operation for British intelligence. But we're less aware of it up here because first of all, I think our media tends to be more corporate. Because we're a smaller country, the concentration of ownership is more apparent and more profound here. And we have a very unhealthy trust of authority in this country. So we don't question the way they do down in the United States. One of the problems with the Fourth Estate is they have a problem with the word conspiracy. And as a result, a lot of researchers in this field are abandoning the word conspiracy because it's so problematic. Because it is now being used in a pejorative way, it's being used as a weapon, as a method of discrediting some pretty serious investigators and journalists in this field. But all a conspiracy is a plan that's put together secretly to commit an illegal or wrongful act or accomplish a legal purpose through illegal action. A conspiracy is not a theory, it's a crime. And if you know any antitrust lawyers, that's what they deal in. They deal in conspiracies. Conspiracies to fix prices, conspiracies to fix labor pools, labor markets. Hundreds of thousands of scientists conspired to build the atomic bomb, the Manhattan Project. How many hundreds of thousands of people were involved in conspiring to land in Normandy? The D-Day invasion, that was a conspiracy. The official version of 9/11, where Osama bin Laden, using a satellite phone in a cave in Afghanistan, to coordinate these al-Qaeda cells to fly planes into the Twin Towers and the Pentagon and ultimately perhaps the White House, that was a conspiracy. It was their conspiracy, yet they maintain that there are no conspiracies.
When you first heard about the idea of a North American Union, how did that make you feel? Like, I think more important than describing exactly what it is, as a Canadian, how does it make you feel to think that people are trying to pull the wool over your eyes like this, or do something without your permission first?
Pissed off that my individual rights, my friends' individual rights, my family, being cast aside. That everything we grew up believing about how societies are supposed to work, how governments are supposed to operate, how Canadian society is supposed to operate is just a complete sham. And it's all a big joke. Why bother to cast a vote? The most important decisions facing our future, or the most important decisions regarding our future, aren't even being debated on the floor of the House of Commons. We've been lulled into this illusory sense of security and comfort, and it's very complex. And obviously, it's beyond most of our comprehension. What's actually involved and the mechanism involved. You're talking about integrating 3 independent sovereign nations. I mean, that's a monumental task. So you can imagine these working groups that are in charge of merging the military and regulatory bodies, etc. I mean, who has time to sit down and contemplate that or think about it? Plus, when we think of the bureaucracy of a country or a government, our eyes tend to sort of roll back in our heads. I mean, it's not exciting stuff per se, except in this instance, again, we're talking about the virtual destruction of a sovereign nation. Three sovereign nations, the end of a constitution, if in fact we ever had one, but that's probably another documentary.
And about the Obama administration, I mean, what's his administration's role going to be in this North American Union?
A continuation. Mm-hmm. They need continuity. Of course, under Reagan's watch, we had NAFTA, and that was further solidified under George Bush, and under George Bush Sr., of course, we had about 3 million manufacturing jobs leave and go elsewhere. Under Clinton, we had further solidification of this process, and I believe there were some countries in South America and Central America that were brought into the fold in terms of free trade. I believe Chile, among others. I tend to believe that we're not talking about the American government here. We're talking about an entity that exists above or beyond elected officials. These are unelected oligarchs, and these are people that have no allegiance to country or flag. So it's a bit of a misnomer to describe them as the American government. We're not talking about the American government here. We're talking about globalists, and they just see this world as one big pie. Obama is a globalist. You can't be president unless you're a globalist.
Yes, there have been differences between America and Europe. No doubt there will be differences in the future. But the burdens of global citizenship continue to bind us together. A change of leadership in Washington will not lift this burden. In this new century, Americans and Europeans alike will be required to do more, not less. Partnership and cooperation among nations is not a choice. It is the only way, the one way, to protect our common security and advance our common humanity.
If John McCain had been elected president and sworn in January, we wouldn't be seeing anything different than what's going on right now. Not any significant changes between those two individuals. So Obama's role is to put a fresh, charismatic, a face on this odious scheme. And that's why he was handpicked to be President of the United States.